Good evening, televiewers, and thank you very much for joining us on another edition of Viewpoint. That is the midweek edition of one of your evening favorite debate programs on the Dbs television. I will use this opportunity to greet one of our faithful televiewers watching us in the Douala 5 municipality, that is Kotor, Gilga, Asho, and probably all her entourage watching us at this particular moment. In today's edition, we'll be talking about the rise of COVID-19 and finding out if Cameroon is prepared for a second lockdown. And to discuss about this, we are having with us here an educationist, that is Com Jerome, and he'll be accompanied by Mange Fenashus. Com Jerome, good evening, and it is a pleasure having you again.
Good evening, Vanessa. Good evening, televiewers. It's always a pleasure to answer present in your program. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Mange Fenashus, happy Wednesday. I always wish you good luck all the days.
Of course, Vanessa, and I have the duty to reciprocate, because they say once you give, you also receive. So as you are giving, you have the duty to also receive. So happy Wednesday to you too, and in fact it's midweek, and good evening to our viewers. It's a pleasure being there for them.
Anyway, we are grateful that the day has taken us this far, and hope that you back at home, your day was a little bit relaxed. So stay tuned. Let us take the first part of the show. In the first question, can the non-respect of barrier measures account for the rise in COVID cases in Cameroon, COVID-19 cases in Cameroon? Com Jerome, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Mange Fenashus, your point of view?
No, Vanessa.
No. And the second question is, Cameroon prepared for a second COVID-19 lockdown? Jerome, what do you think about that? Are we prepared?
No.
No. Mange Fenashus?
Yes, I share the same opinion. We are not, Vanessa.
Not. No. Let us have the debate. Can the non-respect of barrier measures account for the rise in COVID-19 cases in Cameroon? Com Jerome, you think that yes, it is as a result of that? We are talking of the barrier measures being put in place by the World Health Organization and adopted by the Cameroon government in order to prevent the wave of infections. But presently, we are talking about a second wave of infection in Cameroon and like in other African countries and out of Africa. So is it as a result of the non-respect of the barrier measure, or it is a normal thing for us to experience another infection rate?
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Coronavirus doesn't exist in space. It doesn't exist in nature. It is being transferred from person to person, either through the negligence of some of the barriers that were put in place by the World Health Organization, adopted by Center for Disease Control, by the ministries in charge of health and the rest. But one is worried that despite all the advices, all the research put in place by doctors, instead today we are experiencing a rise in the cases of COVID-19, not only in Cameroon, but globally. Because when I observe the statistics of COVID-19 cases in the United States of America, the slope is like increasing. What can be accountable for this? One, the non-respect of the barrier measures. If you look at it, the upliftment of the lockdown, the first lockdown in Cameroon, people went back to life at normal, and they even wanted to double what they used to do before lockdown. For instance, it is very, very common. You move around the streets, they are organizing funeral services, marriages, people are embracing, people are so tight in nightclubs, and even, let me not talk of market, because even the lockdown we had, the market was still very operational. The barrier measures are not actually respected, and I can accuse both the authorities and the individuals. Because to my own point of view now, this thing, everybody is supposed to be responsible and take the necessary measures and approach in order to limit the spread of this COVID-19. The authorities on their own part, I'm not seeing the effort to curb funeral services. When we were talking in those days of maybe meningitis or other airborne diseases, in some areas they ban wake keeping. In my place, there is no more something like wake keeping with cops. But here in the economic capital where we are, if you move along some street, since some of the street have become side effect to some, you will see people gathered in a way that they fear nothing. Whereas that is the cheapest way in which this COVID-19 is being transferred from one person to another. So guys, do not even longer respect what? The able greeting or the normal greeting with the legs. They embrace, it's just as if nothing is happening. Whereas the COVID...
Or even seeing them putting on their face mask.
Even putting on the face mask, no, that one is even a nightmare. It is a rare case. If you go to the central market, if you go to the various churches, restaurants, off licenses, nightclubs, it's very difficult. And the one funny thing in it is that there are some sectors that are really strict. Yes, when I went to a bank, UBA, I wanted to do some transaction.
You know advertisement.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
When I went there, they said, sir, you need to put on your mask. I was with my mask. I said, no, I am going to the airtime. They said, whether you are going to the airtime or whatsoever, you need to put on your mask. You need to sanitize your hands and so on. Okay, it is respected in this milieu. Like in some schools, where the barrier measures are really put in place. There are hand sanitizers. They even distribute face masks to their staffs and personnel, and parents are limited from. But yet, when they leave, you are in a taxi. If you like closely, if you observe the taxi as they are moving, out of 4, instead of even carrying the 2 or 3 people, they are still carrying 4, and none of them is having a face mask, which means you may leave school or you leave your job site safe. As you enter a taxi, you're already contaminated. Because the truth about COVID-19 is that in the morning, you may be negative. And in the evening or the next day, you are positive. So the neglect of this barrier measure is very, very accountable for the increase in the cases of COVID-19. And if care is not taken for us to take this thing into our hand and consider that it is serious, it is a reality, it kills Africans, the rate will be increasing and we will be counting so many deaths.
So many casualties. Thank you very much, Kumchorumbo, for your viewpoint. Mangavana shows if you think that the non-respect of the barrier measure does not account for the rate of another infection. So what then could be the cause?
Yes, Vanessa, when we're talking about this issue of COVID-19, we should not look at it in isolation. You know, it is a virus that, let us take the official statement, that surprised everybody. I say surprised it because that is what they are telling us, that they did not know. It broke out in one city in China. We take the version that it surprised us. And if we isolate it and look at it, like Mr. Kum is saying, actually, the instances he is citing, that is the reality what we are living here in Cameroon. There are some places that did not even experience anything in Cameroon here, like in most African countries, as lockdown. There are some churches that completely refused this thing you are calling lockdown. They did not. They were going on with their services. Markets were open. I don't even imagine when Marché Central in Douala here was closed. People were, you know, seen, you know, mixing up as if nothing happened, like he's saying. That's a fact. Talking about the wearing of face mask, when you wear it now, it's like you look so, you know, abnormal, as if you are out of order. Because people, we are just as we were. Vanessa was asking the question that when you go to some churches, maybe the one where I worship, in church, they don't greet you with the hands. But once we go outside, we greet ourselves with the hands. And I was like, we shake hands. I was asking myself, who are we deceiving? Is it that the COVID-19?
You shake hands, you embrace each other.
And when you go outside now, we can greet each other as usual, as if nothing is happening. Within government circles, when there is an official ceremony, you see everybody wearing a face mask, because cameras will see that we are not wearing face masks, and immediately the ceremony is over, they know that the cameras are no more there. Everybody pulls off the face mask, and we look at the way we even sit,
discuss with each other
openly, as if nothing is happening. And this at times will push me to think that, does this thing called coronavirus, does it really exist? Is it really the truth? I mean, exist back home. That is why I was saying that we should not take it in isolation, because if we look at what happened in Western countries, US, like you were citing, France, Spain, Italy, Germany, if we look at what happened there, all of Cameroon would have finished by now. Because there, at one point, the question of even two people, I remember in India even prohibited two persons. They did not want to see two persons. In France, there were fines that were imposed on people. If you immediately get out of your house. In Italy, immediately you just get out of your house, away from your balcony, and the police lay hands on you, you pay a heavy fine, because the cases were rising, and that's how people were dying. We never experienced such a thing here in Cameroon. Now, the respect of these barrier measures, safety protocols, was highly respected out of Africa. They respected it. The cases made as if they are dying down. Now they are coming up. That's the reason why I said that
when the measures were relaxed, people started to
relaxing did not mean that they should not. They relaxed in a way as lifting the lockdown so that people can still go out and carry out their normal activities. But then social distancing was insisted, wearing of face mask was insisted, hand sanitizing was insisted. It did not cease like us, or it was not in theory like we had here in Cameroon. But then about 2 weeks, the thing came back, and the rates are increasing on a daily basis again in this country. And I tend to ask myself, are they not respecting? They respected it. Now they are back again in the second wave of COVID-19 infection. What is happening? France is already in lockdown. Italy is already in partial lockdown now, because Vatican announced that Christmas activities will be, the Pope will celebrate it in isolation. Almost
the whole of Europe, I think.
Correct. Is already going back into lockdown. What is happening when they themselves were respecting it? So I think that if we isolate it and look at it, because in Cameroon, I don't know whether it is God doing his own ways, the way he does it. I don't know whether they simply deceived us that coronavirus existed, and because if it did exist, okay, I would take the third position, which is coronavirus. They made an error thinking that it would be for the black man, and unfortunately the virus was meant for the white man. That is why it is only killing the white and it is not killing us. Because if it did exist, just Cameroon would have finished. Let's not say Cameroon, let's say Douala, where we are experiencing it. Because when you go to Marché Central, just ask yourself, just say half a meter, no, 1 inch of social distancing, does it exist at the Douala main market here? So you don't have those things. Yet the contamination rate is not. They keep telling us that the active cases, they are just about 2 point something. So the rate of recoveries is 94 point something in Cameroon. Practically, we are at zero. We are at zero practically. But then nothing is happening. But then the few cases that were registered in Bafoussam and in few schools in Douala, were these the only schools that were not wearing face masks? Because when you just stand along the road, you see the way students are going to school. Some schools, like he was saying, they would insist that before you enter the school, you must wear a face mask. But when you go outside, what happened? Before you enter an institution, like he was saying, when you outside, what happened? So I don't think that, I'm not of the opinion that the rise in cases that we are having is because we have disrespected these safety protocols. No, it is just the evolution of the virus, to me. Because if it were the respecting of safety protocols, Europe, Western countries should not be experiencing it. Because Vanessa, somebody was telling us that we are suffering from textbooks here in Cameroon because factories were closed down in India, in China, where they used to produce these books. That is why we don't have them in Cameroon, because they had no opportunity to work. Now, if they could close their country, close their economies down to zero, yet they are back into this in the second wave. We never close ours, and we have nothing. Does it really exist? So that is why when I put it together, I simply conclude that it is not the respect of the non-respect of the safety protocols. Perhaps we could look at it as the evolution of the virus. Perhaps we could look at it as the virus, has failed. Our immune system, African immune system, because it's not only in Cameroon. I was reading something in Rwanda, and they were like saying that only about 45 people died in Rwanda. Only 45. Whereas in Western countries, they will tell you...
Tanzania, when it was still heated all over the world, they said they are free.
They're not locking them down. The president said, we pray and God does the rest. And they prayed and nothing was happening. Imagine the whole country, they are talking of 45 people who died. In Europe, in Italy, we used to have 800 people dying in 24 hours. So this one, for the past 5-6 months, only 45 people are dying. To me, they were sick and they died. It was not because of coronavirus. So I don't know whether this virus struggled and did not attain, get to the level of African immune system, or the African immune system, put it that way, was strong or is stronger than this virus. It is not because we are not respecting it. Because if we have to talk about respecting it, no way, we will not be anywhere.
We will not be anywhere. Mr. Kumjuru, you want to add something?
Yeah, what I just want to say is that this stuff doesn't exist in the air. And as a virus, when it attacks a system, it studies a system for some time, looking for possible means to dominate, to settle. So absolutely what you're saying, maybe the evolution of the virus has its place, but 99.9% is the non-respect of barrier measures. We are still feasting, we are still going to allow, we are still going to have licenses and so on, even churches and everywhere. The people are just like embracing. And when I look at it, Mr. Venatius, as you rightly said, the whole of Cameroon will have finished. Because you go here in this restaurant, there is nothing like sanitizer. You go here, there is nothing, and as you live there, you meet, how many people do you meet per day?
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Let us take the second question. Is Cameroon prepared for a second COVID-19 lockdown? Kumjuru, I remain with you. You think that we are not prepared as compared to other countries that are on lockdown? Most European countries are on lockdown, and Cameroon, we are thinking again, if cases are we going to be able to impose another second lockdown? Or are we even ready to enter that phase?
We are not. We are not at all. And I pray the Almighty God that we shouldn't even think of locking down. Because we all know the consequences of closing down the economy or locking down, allowing people to be at home. You know the consequences that will follow. Cameroon is not ready. One, we have a lot of crises, Vanessa. This coronavirus stuff is just like adding salt into injuries compared to what is already happening in Cameroon, which the government is fighting and is unable to solve all what it had to do. So locking down is a nightmare, and it cannot even be possible because people are barely surviving in Cameroon. So if you lock down now, people live on a day-to-day basis. You bear with me. They live on a day-to-day basis, which means that if they don't go out today, they will not have a meal. They will not have a piece of bread to eat.
Just the coming of the virus itself has already caused an economic recession.
Yes, it has caused an economic recession, which has a lot of repercussions on the local people, because it is always the very low-income earners that feel the impact of any move in the economy, like the coronavirus. If they lock down, there are some people who will say, okay, lock it down for some time. Those who are stealing government money and the rest. And then those of us, when we call les sauveteurs, débrouillards, who are moving around the street, we will feel the impact, and we make up about 90% of the population in Cameroon. Those who are surviving, not even living. Because 90%, I can say 90% of Cameroonians are surviving. They are not living. So any backlash or any fallout, they feel a lot. Why? Because this short lockdown that just ended, the first one that ever took place in Cameroon, it was something very difficult. One, the lay proprietors could not pay their teachers. Two, If a teacher is not paid, the teacher who is on a salary of 60,000, it will have an impact on your house rent. You will not have food to eat. You will not have, let me not even talk of maybe cosmetic, rubbing oil. Just imagine if we dare another lockdown in Cameroon, it is going to lead to another kind of war in another way. We just pray God that we contain it and we make a lot of sensitization. The government should sit up. We make a lot of sensitization. Ban this issue of holding rallies along the street to organize ceremonies, feasts of this, feast of that. It is not important, and the government has what it takes
to implement it.
We have police and other officials who are playing cards, draft the whole day. They don't have any duty posts. Vanessa, they should deploy them to these places to check. So much so that at least the local man who depend on a day-to-day survivor should have hope of a better tomorrow, because whether come what, the virus will come and go.
The virus will come and go.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Kumjuro. Mangavina shows you clearly think that Cameroon is not prepared for a second lockdown.
At all, Vanessa. We are not, like Mr. Kumu is saying. If you look at it, look at the consequences of a lockdown. When you lock down a country like Cameroon, you lock down the economy, and when you lock down the economy, the impact is so much. When we attempted a lockdown in the first case that we had here, February, March, look at how many people lost their jobs. Because companies could not break even, they decided to lay off their workers. When you lay off a man who has a family, who has a family to feed, a family to house, a family to clothe, all these, you see the kind of life that people were living at the time. When you lay off workers, how do you turn about the economy? Because it is these very workers who go about carrying out, their daily activities that turn the country, that drive the country. Now everything was on a standstill. Mr. Kum was talking something about government revenue. When you listen to most reports from most council sessions, they are complaining that they could not carry out the public investment projects because the budget was not realized. The estimated income, because the budget, people think that the budget is money that is kept aside. No, it is the money they have estimated.
The income,
yes, that we are going to generate this amount of money to carry out this or this project. In as much as the economy is not turning, there is no way we can ensure such developmental projects. That's why when you listen to most councils, they keep telling us that they did not succeed to realize this and this and this because of COVID-19. Some may be fictitious, like Mr. Kumo was saying. Some may be facts. We don't know them. But I think that as the parliament is meeting, they should scrutinize this COVID-19 period. Anyway, many things will be coming out. Besides the economic aspect of it, let's go socially. If you look at the social aspect of it, I indicated something here that in the church where I worship, when we go into church, when it is time to offer signs of peace, you just simply look at your brother and you bow like Chinese would do, and you just laugh or you wave. But when we go outside, we greet, I will share. There is this social, this African Bantu way of socializing. We know that when I see you, I greet you, we chat, and we talk close to face, closer.
I could even pinch or box you or slap you.
Of course. Of course. But then, with the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to stay some distance. I don't have to talk closer to you. It's have to develop even ways. Greeting with elbows, somebody said, it is another sign where those involved in secret society, this is how they greet. They understand themselves, that's the truth. I don't know because I'm not there. So they say when you greet, you are making allusion to a certain secret society. I don't know. Now, all these kind of things, we should not go back to it again, because they were already killing that social intimacy that exists between Cameroonians, between Africans. But then if you look at it from the aspect of school education, you realize that with the lockdown, so many things happened. When we locked down, there was high cost of living. High cost of living, how? Children used to get up in the morning, take their breakfast and go to school. This time they are in the house. And Vanessa, the rate at which they eat for the past 7 months that they have been in the house, you don't even know when a bag of rice gets finished. and you tend to ask. I remember one teacher was saying that parents now, you will understand what we teachers go through. You not test your ability to call yourself a parent, because you now carry out your activity of child bringing. For 7 months, we were barely crying that schools come and take your children. One, they were a problem to us. Two, to feed them was not given to every child, because once they are in the house, you feed them 3 times a day, even some 4. And how many parents could manage that in Cameroon? Besides that, we had high crime wave. High crime wave. Why? Because we had children just roaming around, doing nothing, idling, maybe in a cosmopolitan town like Douala, where they don't have farms to go to. Once they are around, parents must have gone out or this. So many things can happen, and they have been happening. So much so that we tend to doubt, if not of school, what would have happened to our children? Now, besides that, somebody was saying if we are not careful, we will be turning out half-baked graduate from our schools this year, because the rate of lukewarmness that children have gone back to school with, a low quality education that children are exhibiting, teachers are surprised. Yes. Because for the holiday used to be 3 months, and when they come back after 3 months, teachers are complaining that it is still taking time for them to adapt back to school. This was 3 times 2, so they had 2 kind of summer holidays put together. And when you bring them together, to tell the child that we're already back in school, we're already getting to 2 months, some children are still mentally back home. They're still mentally in lockdown. That is why teachers were complaining that the quality is too low, the quality is too poor. So I think that if we should go back again to another lockdown, it will be too catastrophic. We should not go back. Let's pray that our immune system remains strong, so that we should resist this coronavirus, if at all, Vanessa, it does exist.
Your immune system is strong. Jerome, so what we advise Cameroonians watching us on this particular one, because I think that we do have the upper hand to prevent the government from imposing another lockdown.
Yeah, the advice I give Cameroonians is to be responsible, and then if you are like somebody in your community, you have been touched by the Spirit of God, go ahead and do the sensitization that people should be responsible. It concerns us, because we have seen in many cases where the government say they don't care as what is happening in the Northwest, what happened in Kumba, what happened in Limbe. Take these things into our hand and let us be the keeper. I remember in Ghana, it was said one time ago that only 3 people should be in the taxi. If you are caught number 4, you are the one to be punished.
Thank you very much, Jerome. The message has gone across. It has been a pleasure having you. And the Manga Venashus hope to have you again tomorrow.
Certainly, Vanessa will be there.
Certainly, we'll be there, ladies and gentlemen. We've come to the end of today's edition. Thank you very much for your kind and keen attention. Just make sure that you respect the barrier measures wherever or you find yourself. Do take care and have a blessed evening. Goodbye.